What is going on, everyone? My name is No Pun Intended, and welcome to coverage of my Week 11 battle for the UPA. If you guys enjoy this kind of draft league content, please make sure to leave a like or a comment on the video. I would very much appreciate it. Today, however, we are taking on North Vader, coach of the Scarborough Starraptors. I've left his channel link in the video description, so go check that out for me. But anyway, most draft league teams are defined by the first mon they draft in the season. And in North's case, that would be Zygarde. And considering my only ground resist is Decidueye, and it doesn't have the best physical defense stat, my matchup against Zygarde is pretty bad. I also happen to do pretty bad against teams with incredibly bulky mons, and the Staraptors have Arcanine and Suicune and Miltank and Scrafty, and they all either have reliable recovery, or they're good at using rest. But enough about his team, let's get into my team. That's the one you're all interested in, right? Right. So the story behind this week's team. I had a squad prepped and ready to go on Wednesday for a game that was scheduled to be played on Sunday. I asked Narth whether or not he was going to be ready to go at our scheduled time, and he said he needed an additional 15 minutes to get himself settled. So I looked over that team in those 15 minutes, and I realized that there was a particularly good chance that he could get 6-0'd by a standard Cleric Florges. And so I made a few last-minute changes to make sure that didn't happen. But things might have gone rather differently in this battle had I not made those changes. Now, I don't normally advocate making those changes so close to the start of the battle, but I was desperate. The biggest change I made involved removing a Calm Mind Shukaberry Cobalion, because I realized that even if I ran something like Iron Head as a coverage move, it wouldn't be able to touch Florges. Instead, I replaced it with Banded Escavalier, even though I was worried about the matchup against Arcanine and Suicune, because bulky fires and bulky waters just completely shut down Escavalier. I needed something to kill Florges. That was pretty much the idea. It also gave me some kind of a wall breaker besides Swallow. I had tried a similar thing in Week 3, it didn't work, but part of that was me losing my Choice Band to Audino's knockoff. He doesn't have very many mons that can use that move in this game, so I'm okay with keeping it here. And I'm not switching Escavalier into Scrafty or something. Twin Needle is there to break the sash on Alakazam. The rest of the moves are pretty standard. Meanwhile, Swallow is Choice Specs. Most of his mons are more physically bulky than they are especially bulky, so going with the Specs Boom Burst just made more sense. And he also doesn't have any rock types, so yeah, it's just better than the physical set this week. I don't know why Endeavor's here. Whenever I'm trying to choose Swallow's fourth move, I just throw a bunch of dice in the air and whatever the numbers land on, that's the move I pick. At least in this case, I might be able to wear something like Florges or Suicune down to a very low amount of HP if they bring Swallow to that point, but who knows the chances of that happening. But next we have Scarf Croak. Again, rather standard as far as Crocodiles go, except for going Stealth Rocks alongside the Scarf, and that's part of the collateral of removing Cobalion last minute. I wanted Rocks on something, so I just took Rock Slide off Crocodile because I wasn't sure when I was going to use it, and that's why I have Stealth Rock. Otherwise, the goal is to surprise Narf by having my Crocodile outspeed his Arcanine, his Zygarde, his Thundy T, his Alakazam, and use whatever move is necessary to kill them or severely weaken them. Next up is Weezing, and this mon has one prime directive. Get up T-Spikes, by any means necessary. Will-O-Wisp can burn Steelix and make it so the Weezing can act as a check to that by just pain splitting up repeatedly against it as it tries to attack me. Otherwise, there's not really much else to say. I'm practically only going to be playing with 5 mons against his 6, but those Toxic Spikes will be well worth it. Then we move on to Primarina, the other kind of defensive mon, although it is modest max special attack. And the basic goal of Primarina is to stop me getting swept by Crocoon. I can psych up the boosts, and as long as I have the same number of stages of special attack as he does special defense, Energy Ball will be a 3-hit KO, even if he has leftovers on Suicune. I just do not want to get swept by it, and if he isn't Crocoon, then my other mons can handle it better, but this is just kind of a tech move to help me out against that matchup. Beyond that, Moonblast hits Scrafty 4 times super effectively, Surf allows me to hit Arcanine, and Energy Ball is for that previously mentioned Suicune. That's why it has 3 attacking moves. And the last mon is Dragon Dance Megalodios, mostly invested in attack and speed. I want it to be my sweeper. His main switches to Dragon are Florges, who does not have the best physical defense, and Mega Steelix, who's weak to ground. I think this set can do a lot for me if the proper situation arises. Now, looking at the 6 mons that Narth brought, I noticed that neither Delmise nor Skuntank were among them. and that means that I made an insanely good decision bringing Toxic Spikes. The poison damage will help me ensure some kills that I otherwise might not be able to get, as long as I wait a little bit. Another apparently good decision I made was bringing Escavalier over Cobalion, because he did in fact bring the Florges. So now I have a really good way to check that. I don't have to rely on just chipping it down, which may not even work if he brings a Wish Pass set. Beyond that, he doesn't have Alakazam to revenge kill anything. He doesn't have Suicune to just survive repeatedly. So I'm actually pretty happy, even though he brought both the Zygarde and the Thunderous Eye, which are his two most threatening mons. But you almost have to expect League coaches to bring their most threatening mons against me. But with that being said, let's head directly into the battle. So if you've been watching my videos for the past few weeks, you know I'm not very good at predicting lead matchups, and I get this one wrong too. I think he's going to lead Zygarde, so I go into my Primarina, which can take any Dragon hit. Instead, he sends out Thundy Eye, and I look pretty stupid right now. Even worse, I don't have a great Electric Switch in. My only two potential resists would be my Mega Latios and my Krookodile, who are both weak to U-turn if he carries it. So I have to make a bit of an executive decision as to which mon I'd most be willing to get rid of, and I choose Krookodile. Krookodile was namely here to Pursuit Trap Alakazam, as well as check Skuntank, in case he wanted to use it as T-Spike deterrent. Without any of those mons on the field, Krookodile isn't going to be as important as I originally thought it was, so I bring it into the Thundy. He's not Defiant, which is nice because he does reveal the U-turn. He's going to deal about 36% to my Croak, but I don't really care too much about health on this Krookodile because, again, it's Scarfed. But he's going to elect to pivot into the Scrafty. He gets off an Intimidate, which means that I have no chance of damaging this thing very well. So I'm going to pull a Hard Switch into my Primarina. It can tank any hit that the Scrafty can go for, even if he sets up to +1 attack. But he's going to double into Zygarde for some reason. Not exactly sure what he was predicting me to go out into there, but it's a net positive for me because I can just click Moonblast and hopefully deal a lot of damage to the Zygarde, but of course he wouldn't allow that when he has a Florges that only takes 30% damage. I did expect that switch up, but I didn't want to take the chance that he would try to set up on me. But I'm not going to expect my opponent's next switch in, because he doubles here into the Arcanine as I bring in Escavalier. In all honesty, looking back, and I should have brought in Weezing, because this is a perfect time to get up T-Spikes, knowing that this is probably a defensive Florges since it carried leftovers. It would have been a great opportunity, and he has no way to get rid of the T-Spikes. So I would have been able to start off my strategy, but instead, I let Arcanine get off a nice Flare Blitz. I do decide to swap out, and I go into Weezing now, but it does mean I take a bit of unnecessary damage. However, that roll reveals he is defensive, so I will get up at least one Toxic Spike. But not before he lands a crit Flare Blitz with his Arcanine. It was a roll to get to a KO'd there, so I don't think it really mattered all that much. But the T-Spike I get up here is definitely going to matter. And now that it's up, I'm going to try to force him to switch around between his walls. So I'm going to go into my Krookodile here, keep Weezing as death fodder for later on, as he just goes for another Flare Blitz. It is a 2-hit KO, but I'm hoping that he thinks that I'm not Scarf, and I'm a more defensive spread, so that he gets lulled into a false sense of security and tries to stay in. But Narth's a bit too smart for that. He's going to go into Miltank as I get up my Stealth Rocks, because again, he has no Hazard Remover. And that means I get big damage off on Thundy Eye and Arcanine whenever they switch in. But now I'm going to make the aggressive switch in into my Escavalier as he goes up for the Stealth Rocks, so now I am inside, and then I make a rather large prediction that he's going to go back into Arcanine, and I'm going to click Knock Off. If he stays with Miltank, I remove whatever item it's holding. If he goes into Arcanine, I get off the most damage I can potentially deal to it, and I don't think there's a possibility he's going to go into anything else, because nothing on his team wants to take a stab move from Escavalier. So he's forced to sack Arcanine, his best Escavalier check, to Escavalier. That's why I think it is such an underrated mon. Just the ability for it to whack things in the face, even that would resist its stat moves. It just has a very well-rounded stat distribution and type, and while its coverage moves aren't the best, the fact they're coming off base 130 attack means that you don't usually have to worry about tight matchups. But because I locked my Escavalier into Knockoff, he can bring in the Scrafty, get off a second Intimidate, and I can't touch him. I can't risk him setting up too greatly, so what I'm going to do is make another hard switch into my Primarina. Because he did not bring the Suicune, I don't really need health on the Primarina. I just need to be able to take one hit from Scrafty, is all. And as he sets up a Dragon Dance, I know that the Poison move is likely to come in, but the incoming Poison Jab does not kill me, and I'm able to get off of Moonblast and KO Scrafty. Now, he is going to be able to revenge kill me with the Miltank, but I don't necessarily care about that. Primarina's done its job. It generally gets walled by the Florges. It gets revenged by Thundy Eye. I don't necessarily care about it living. It did what it needed to do. And now I make what could be classified as a questionable play, though I am going to explain my thought process as to why I did it. So I'm going to go into Krookodile, knowing full well that I don't have a very good chance of killing Miltank, even after the poison damage. Now, I could have very well gone into Swallow and just clicked Boom Burst, but in my mind, doing that would have revealed my set to my opponent, and I really don't want to do that, because if I reveal that I'm Specs, he would be more inclined to keep Florges around, and since I only have one way to kill Florges, that being my Escavalier, I'd rather keep that information secret for now. It's also worth noting that Crocodile doesn't have a great move to lock itself into, because if I stick with Knockoff, then he can just bring in the Florges and continually Wish Protect on me until he gets back to full HP, and then can KO me whenever he wants. And if I lock myself into Earthquake, he just goes into Thunderous and has the potential to set up. Neither option I really like, so getting rid of Crocodile seemed best rather than revealing information about Swallow. So Miltank's now at 3%. He can't switch out right here, otherwise it just dies. So I know that I can safely come into my Mega Latios and click Earthquake to take the KO. I don't want to set up on the off chance he has Thunder Wave, because if he does that, then that opens up a whole lot of trouble, potentially. But my opponent's now going to bring in the Thunderous Eye, and I'm just going to choose to sack off my Weezing. It's not really a great spot for him to go for a nasty plot here, because if I just elect to stay in on the Thunderous, he would look very silly and he would die. I also made the switch out to Weezing because I thought there was potential he could go for the Z move, similarly to how my Mega Latios was felled by a Thunderous Tease Black Hole Eclipse back in week 4. But that didn't end up happening, he just goes on to click U-turn. I lose my Weezing, and he's going to go into the Florges, and that's going to set up the end game. I really need to kill this Florges, so I'm going to go straight into my Escavalier. Even if he switches out here, I'm going to get a big hit off on something. So what he's going to do is sack off the Florges, just go for the Wish as I kill him with Iron Head. And I realize I've kind of played into his hands right here, because whichever of his 2 mons he brings in on this turn, they can set up, and I can't damage them at all, since they'll just receive the Wish at the end of the next turn. And when he goes straight into Zygarde, I figure he's going to try to Dragon Dance. That's the worst case scenario I'm considering, because it's the only decent set available that would outspeed my Swallow. So I realize I don't want to stay in with Escavalier, on the off chance he goes for 2,000 arrows in a row instead and kills it. The only attack I could go for that will leave any considerable dent in this Zygarde is the Mega Horn. So I think to myself, what Mon would I be most willing to sack here? I definitely want Escavalier at a good range of health for endgame. And the last time Escavalier was in on a Dragon against River's Haxorus in week 6, I was the victim of a well-played Z move. Swallow can outspeed the Thunderous Eye unless it's Scarf and hit it with Boom Burst. Now, while Mega Latios might be able to tank even a Dark Pulse from Thunderous, to me it's the least useful Mon I have, because it wouldn't outspeed Thunderous, or a +1 speed Zygarde. So I'm going to go into Mega Latios. Zygarde's going to set up the Dragon Dance, then he receives the Wish, and finishes the turn at 88% of its health. Now I'm really hoping that if he has the Z Crystal, that he burns the move right here, because then I go into Escavalier and try to impale him with my Banded Mega Horn. If he doesn't, then he may have to lock himself into Outrage, which means that Escavalier definitely survives Zygarde's attack. But what ends up happening is that he reveals Crunch, and Mega Latios is just going to drop. I'm guessing that move is more specifically brought for Decidueye, but it's also going to work out here in this situation, because I'm going to have to go into Escavalier now. I run the calc for a Choice Band and Mega Horn onto Zygarde, and if it doesn't have any HP investment, I'm guaranteed a KO after poison damage, because it does min 74%. Even if he has more HP investment than I'm anticipating, a Banded Mega Horn plus 1 round of poison damage would more than likely take him out, provided I don't miss. If he carries Ground EMZ and uses Tectonic Rage, I just die and lose the game. If he has a non-ground type Z move, or no Z Crystal at all, and just attacks straight up, I am going to live the attack, and Mega Horn will KO. So, I'm putting all of my faith into Escavalier. So Narth finally chooses his move. It's not a Z move. We can potentially live this. It's just a plain old 1,000 arrows. But it's also a critical hit. And as a result, I lose Escavalier, I lose Swallow, and I lose the game. I mean, I totally called something like that. I said in a previous game that because of all the hacks I was getting in my favor, that I was due for something to go against me, and it happened right here. Now, talking about that endgame, if he hadn't crit the 1,000 arrows and I had landed my Mega Horn, Zygarde would have died, and there would have been a one-on-one between Swallow and Thunderous Eye. More than likely, Swallow would have outsped and killed with a Boom Burst. I mean, I had that game. I would have won 1-0. And I would have gotten right back into the thick of the playoff race, because right now, as a result, we fall to 5-6, and we are now the 10th seed out of 12 in the U-Turn Conference. So there are 9 teams ahead of us, only 2 behind us, in spite of the fact we're only 1 game below 500. Oh my gosh, why? Why does this keep happening to me? Oh man. You wanna know what one of the funny things is? You know how Escavalier has 3 abilities that are pretty situational at best? You never really know which one you want to use in a game, and if it's even going to influence the game. Well, if I had been Shell Armor instead of the Swarm, I would have won. Funny how these things work out sometimes. But anyway, I do want to wish a good game to Narth. He definitely played well. It was a very evenly matched game. I wish it didn't come down to a crit, but it did. Sometimes games come down to crits. But for those of you Aegislash fans who are disappointed over the result of this game, I do have some good news for you. So all the Week 12 UPA games have been played as of the time I'm recording this video. And this week was the final week for out-of-conference games. And I was fortunate enough to be matched up against the one coach in the other conference that's currently MIA. So we got an automatic 4-0 forfeit win, and that certainly makes up for the crit. I'm very, very happy about that. So our current record right now is 6-6 with a -1 differential. And this team is in a pretty weird spot right now. We're only 2 games out of first place, but we're currently in 10th place in the conference out of 12 teams. So we really control our own destiny right now. If we get wins in all of our final 3 games, we clinch playoffs. If we get wins in 2 out of 3, we have a very, very, very good chance at reaching the postseason. On the other hand, if we only get 1 win or 0 wins in our last 3 games, you could pretty much kiss our postseason chances goodbye. That's the mindset I'm operating under right now, and will be operating under for the remainder of the season. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to leave a like or a comment if you did. Go check out Narth's channel once again, and until I see you next time, take care.